Okay, the objective for this video is to be able to find the GCF, or the greatest common factor of a set of numbers. To be able to find the greatest common factor of a set of numbers. Okay, so right away we're talking about two or more numbers. So let's take, for example, 24 and 36. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find out what are the factors of these two numbers, and what's the factor that both of these share that's the biggest or the greatest? The greatest, the largest common factor, the largest factor that both of these have in common. So if you think about that definition, I think it helps you to not get as confused with the greatest common factor versus the least common multiple. And factors, as we know, are numbers that when you multiply by another number, you get 24. So for example, 2 times 12, those are both factors to get 24. So the first method that I'll show you, and it's easy, but I think it takes longer sometimes, so you can choose if you want to use this one or not, is just listing the factors out. And in this case, then you would list all the factors, not just the prime factors. Okay, so the factors of 24 are 1, because 1 times 24, 2 times 12, I'll write it in just a second, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Okay, here we go. That was 4 times 6, and 3 times 8 was 24, and 2 times 12 was 24, and 1 times 24 is 24. So these are all of the factors for 24, and then the factors of 36 are 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, let's see, 4 times 9, 6 times 6, and now we have, that was the 4 times the 9, and the 3 was times the 12, and the 2 was times the 18, and the 1 times 36. So we can see what the factors are that they have in common, and if we keep listing what they have in common, we can see that 12 is the greatest factor that these have in common. So 12 would be the greatest common factor. Now again, that was the list method, and you can do it that way, but there are a few more ways that I wanted to show you. Okay, the second method that I was going to recommend is the tree method. You can definitely do it this way. Let's say you have the two numbers 18 and 24 this time. Well, if you do the factor tree, okay, you get, this is what you'll roughly come up with: 2 times 3 times 3. That's the prime factorization of 18. And if you do the same thing for 24, let's start up here so I don't run out of room. 2 times 12, 2 times 6, 2 times 3, you get the factors 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Now, if you're using this method, what you will do is you will circle the factors that they have in common. So for example, there's a 2 here and a 2 here. There's a 3 here and a 3 here. If there was another 3 on both of these, you'd circle those as well. Or if there was another 2, an extra 2 over here, you'd circle that as well. But since they only share 1, 2, and 1, 3, those are the two prime factors that they share. And then 2 times 3 is 6, so the greatest common factor is 6. Again, the greatest common factor between 18 and 24. So that's the tree method. Okay, I'll do one more using the factor tree. Let's call it tree method. It's using the factor trees, I guess, is the best way to say it. Let's do 64 and 88, and again we're trying to find the greatest common factor. Let's see, we have 2 times 32, 2 times 16, 2 times 8. Ooh, look at that. 2 times 4, 2 times 2. So we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. This would be a good one to put in exponent form, but we won't do that for now. 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, got it all. All right, now how about 88? Let's do 2 times 44, 2 times 22, and again 2 times 11. So we have over here 2 times 2 times 2 times 11. Probably be good to just double check this again. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 11 is 88. Okay, so we got it. All right. So here's a common 2 that they share. Here's another common 2 that they share. Here's another common 2 that they share. Move it down a little bit. Okay, and then there's no more 2's over here, and there's not an 11 over here. So that what they share is a 2 times a 2 times a 2, and that gives us 8. So the greatest common factor for these two numbers is 8. Again, that's using factor trees. Now, the last way, and this is the way that I prefer, but again, it's up to you to do these, is what we said before is the cake method, or something they call it ladder method, or I don't know, there's all different kinds of terms, I guess, slide or something like this. Let's say you have the two numbers 12 and 30. Okay, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to start, draw a base of a cake at the bottom here, and I have 12 and I have 30. Okay, these are not being multiplied together, they're just separate numbers, and I want to see what factor can I pull out of both of these. It doesn't have to be the biggest one yet, just 2 is easy since they're both even. Let's factor out a 2. If we factor out a 2 from 12, we get 6. If we factor out a 2 from 30, we get 15. Okay, and then we'll raise the next layer of our cake. Now, what number can we factor out of both of these? Okay, very good, 3. And if we factor out 3 from 6, we get 2. If we factor out 3 from 15, we get 5. Now, is there a number that we can factor out of both 2 and 5? I don't believe so. So if you look at this left-hand side here, the factors that we could factor out of both of them were 2 and then later a 3. So 2 times 3 equals 6, and that is our greatest common factor of 12 and 30. By the way, if you decide to use this method, there's a very simple way that I'll teach in the future of how you can find also at the same time with the same exact cake weight you have here the least common multiple, but that will be for a later lesson. I just want to tell you that because if you decide to use this method, it might benefit you further down the road than the other tree, factor tree. You can find it with a factor tree as well. Okay, let's do two more. Let's do one more, two numbers. 84 and 72. Okay, what can I factor out of both 84 and 72? Well, I can factor out a 2. That will give me 42 up here, and that will give me 36 over there. And then I can factor out another 2, and that will give me 21. And 2 out of 36 is 18. And what can I factor out of both of those? Well, I can factor out a 3. That gives me 7 and 6. And I don't think I can factor anything out of 7 and 6. So I had I had 2 come out of both of these numbers. I had another 2 come out of both these numbers. I had another 3 come out of both of those numbers. 2 times 2 times 3 equals 12. And my greatest common factor equals 12. Okay, so there's another method for you to use, the cake method, what I call it. And hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Bye.